The Dr. Terri Show is presented by Avexius Health Solutions. Avexius Health Solutions is an emerging leader in the integrative medicine on a mission to positively impact people's lives through the transformation of healthcare. Avexius educates and trains practitioners on the new, innovative, integrative therapies that support a preventative care model that drives vitality as you age. You can learn more about Avexius Health Solutions and many of the healthcare topics we discuss on the Dr. Terri Show at Avexius.com. That's EVEXIAS.com, as well as find a provider near you. Now here's today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Terri Show. I'm in the studio today with my amazing, funny, entertaining husband, Dan, and we are going to be talking about some interesting things that are happening kind of in our country right now with this groundswell of information and this focus and interest on health or how unhealthy we might be and what could some of the root causes of that be. RFK Jr. and some of the things he's brought to the forefront, but more importantly, how that conversation impacts us not only as individuals, not only as communities and our faith communities, whatever community that we are functioning in, but also all the way down to the community of our family unit. So it's going to be a great conversation. Join us in the studio as I get with my husband Dan and talk about these really interesting and somewhat maybe little bit controversial topics. Hey Dan.
What's up? It's good to be back with you, Dr. Terri.
It's fun. I was going to call you Dr. Dan. You just play one on TV, though.
That's right. I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night, so.
Yeah. Did you?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like you were there at the house with me, unless you snuck out. I don't know.
No, I don't know. It's kind of fun to be back. You know, it's fun to watch us do a session and then see how many people actually listen to it. And surprisingly, I guess we do pretty well together.
I guess so. People want to see what this whole thing
you brought me
about.
back. I thank you for bringing me back.
Actually, the producer brought you back.
The producer did? You didn't want me.
No, I did, but I was like, is it okay? Is it good? Are we doing all right?
It's hurtful.
Is it meaningful?
You should have known. People are like, okay, is this
all right? Is this what we're going to listen to?
Come on, what are we doing here? What are we talking about today?
This is what our kids have to deal with all the time. They're like, are y'all fighting? Like, oh, we're having a conversation.
Exactly. Well, kids nowadays too, they're just so very, offended. It seems like they're so offended very easily, or it takes like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And you're just trying to be like,
I'm just joking.
Yes, playful and, being sarcastic and just, a sense of humor. But it seems like we're maybe a little
well, maybe our hormones are better optimized.
Maybe we're eating too much sugar, too many carbs, and it makes us irritable because we don't have a really good balance. What do you think? Let's talk about that today.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
I have to mention my new favorite person.
Who is that? It's not me?
Well,
that's your new favorite person?
It's my new favorite person.
Gotcha.
That is not some of the, RFK Jr.
RFK?
Yeah.
I like him too.
Yeah. So let's talk about an interesting movement that I've never been so happy to see a groundswell is the truth, and the truth about food, the truth about our health, really. Mm-hmm. It's not even about food, but our health, it peels back to food, right? And just the truth about how important that is for us as parents, grandparents, employers, employees, partners, it doesn't matter.
Christians.
And Christians, and let's talk about how important that is, because it's actually even scriptural, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a great conversation to have, because I think people are starting to hear the truth. I don't know if people really want to hear the truth, but it really is kind of time, right? Because we're spending so much money on healthcare. We're spending so much time on healthcare. And I don't even like the term healthcare because it's not healthy and it's not caring. It's actually the opposite of that.
Well, it's sick care, and we talk about that all the time in our walk of life, in our vocation. It's what we do.
Right.
We help practitioners learn about how to do preventative healthcare,
Right.
not reactive sick care. And unfortunately, our system is built on this reactive sick care. It's how pharma is designed to help you after you have this sickness. And then, of course, it's not just that they give you this medication for 30 days, as it originally was. Right. It was like, okay, you take this, it's symptom relief. Right. And then but during that time, I got to find out why. I give you an aspirin because you have a headache, but during the time where you're recovering, why are you having a headache? Yeah. And that's the piece in medicine that actually I don't think has followed through. But to your point, sick care versus health care. Yeah.
And how impactful it is just on relationships and relationally. And, as we started talking about Christians as a group. And it's the one thing that it seems like is never talked about or taught, even in faith circles, really probably no matter your faith, really, who's talking about our physical health. We spend a lot of time talking about spiritual things and spiritual health, but not really the physical health. So I wonder, why is that?
The Christian part and what we're taught, what you learn in church, it's what we've said for a long time, which the church is focused on spiritual side, and humanity is made up of mind, body, spirit, but all we're talking about is spirit in the church. And so where do we go to get our education about mind and body is outside of the church. And it's really, to me, and has always been, seemed backwards. Mm-hmm. I think that the Christian body as a whole, it should be the most healthy. That we should be, talking about the temple of the Holy Spirit. We should be taking care of our bodies. We should be at the forefront, leading the way and saying these are the things that are really good. And unfortunately, and I also want to say this to the audience: I don't want this segment to come across as judgmental or as shaming or as you're a rotten person because you're out of shape. Hey, we've all been at that point where we go, could we do better for ourselves? Could we be healthier? Could we be lighter? Could I have better cardiovascular health? Could I have better mental health? Right. And we're just talking about kids and not being able to talk to them without them getting fit. It was probably because they don't feel great. They feel, they just had a Snickers bar. Well, they just had
or even just
processed food.
Yeah, processed food, or just overstimulation of their brains with, all the input from phones and other electronics. But it's so important. I love what you're saying about that, because what happens when we get to a certain point in our life, and for so many people, it's at our age, like we're in our 50s, but a lot of people are surprised that we're in our 50s because of our vitality. And
I love it when you tell people that you're 57 and that you have 6 grandkids.
Yeah.
And people are like,
freaks them
they
out
look at
bit.
you. I digress.
Yeah, but it's true. And so, and again, I feel like I'm very fortunate to have started learning about all these things in my 40s, when a lot of things start to unravel for most of us.
Great point. So everybody starts getting concerned about their health in their 60s, right? Well, they've been diagnosed with, breast cancer. They've cardiovascular disease. They're 50 pounds overweight. Yeah. It doesn't make logical sense to me to people when you're 20s and 30s, when you're in those years of formation of foundation. I talk about it to our sons about, building muscle, building the bricks, laying the bricks down, muscle memory, and not just the boys, but also the girls. You create that at a young age, but you follow that up by eating correctly, by not eating processed foods and so forth. So let me go back to what I was saying from a standpoint of, being not trying to shame people, we're just asking the question, are you in a position, or do you think, as a believer or a non-believer, that you are glorifying the Heavenly Father with the way that you look, the way that you feel, the way that you act, your physical health. And so when we're talking about that all the time in church, we don't talk about it in the church. And I always point out, and I have a lot of pastors that are friends that are pastors, and I always point out, and again, don't want this to be offensive to anyone, but they're preaching against, the sins of the flesh, and, this and that and the other. And, they throw homosexuality out there. And then I always point out that, right next to homosexuality is gluttony. And so here we
it's
go
true.
with, they're going to preach hard against, well, that's just horrible. That's this, that's the other. And I'm like, well, no offense, but you're 335 pounds and you haven't seen, the light of the door of a gym for, 10 years.
Right.
And so what is that? And again, I can't stress enough with the audience. I don't want to come across as judgmental or pointing the finger. But don't you like to talk about the truth? I mean, if we're going to really get down to solve problems in this country, and that's one of the things, to circle back to RFK, is let's start being real with this stuff. Quit walking around saying we have an obesity problem in this country.
Let's come up with another drug.
It's interesting. The true fact, in the history of our country, in 2022, and I'll give you 2022, 23 statistics, we have never spent more on healthcare than at any other time in history in this country, than at any other time. And yet we are sicker. We are less healthy than at any other time. So what it is that we're doing, we're not focused on the right things.
That's right.
And so let's start focusing on the right things. I say this all the time. People want to change. People want to change their lives. They just don't want to change their lives.
Well, and thank you for keep talking about, because it can be, we're not talking about size. We're not talking about, we're not shaming for size. We're talking about what's the truth behind it. Well, there's a couple of key things. One, we know that your mental and emotional health plays a huge role. I mean, a lot of overweight, unhealthy people in the world, but especially in this country, it is an eating disorder. It's a mental health issue. So going on a bunch of diets and missing that mental, spiritual piece is a huge missing factor. But another big part of it, and this is where and so many other people that, you're seeing this upswell on social media of people talking about the food. It's not even food. I call it unfood. But the foods that are processed in this country and how they are purposefully designed to be addictive. Sugar addiction is a real thing.
Sure.
And so, we joke and say sugar's the Christian crack, right?
Yeah.
Because, all of our gatherings, there's may not be drinking alcohol, but there's a ton of sugar.
Well, and it's kind of funny, side note, but you hear sermons all the time, and I know that the pastor's trying to be funny about talking about eating cherry pie and Bluebell ice cream and stuff like that, but it's almost like I hear that and I understand it, but it's
we shouldn't be joking about it.
Exactly,
it's a real thing.
especially when you have people that truly have healthcare problems. It'd be like somebody saying, you have people in your audience that are alcoholics, but you're going to joke from the pulpit about alcohol.
That's right.
I don't know. It seems disingenuous to me. But then again, you look at it and go, that's not just the church, by the way. That's just everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing because this guy's, overweight or whatever the situation. But to your point on the kids, we as parents, I mean, kids eat what's put before them, right? So if you're taking them to, fast food and you're buying processed food and you don't even know how to cook a whole chicken that's raw, in something that's healthy, look to yourself, look to the parent.
Right.
And so again, when we started talking about what we wanted to talk about,
it's a hard conversation to
it
have
is,
without
and again,
sounding we're so great and perfect.
No, we're not.
Yeah,
and,
by far.
But again, having the conversation just to start thinking about it, just to start getting the wheels turning in. Another point that before I forget, and this was brought up prior to the show, it's interesting that a lot of the more liberal states, the blue-leaning states, are more into health food.
Some of them.
Yeah, true. But there's a lot of, natural this and natural that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is fun. You get to the South and you get to the red states and you get to, deep fried.
We
and
like
this
our
and
fried chicken.
We like
and
our deep fried
casseroles.
Twinkies, right?
Yes.
That. But again, laughing at it, but stepping back and seeing the end result of where we are right now in this country as far as our health is concerned, getting back to RFK, that's what he's seeing.
Right. And I think if people could understand that pretty much every processed food is designed to be addictive. It is intentionally designed to be addictive. Yeah. If you've ever watched the Netflix documentary Fed Up, Dr. Mark Hyman. He's kind of one of the OG leaders in this whole conversation about food many, many years ago. But he talks about in part of that about, I can't remember who it was riding in an airplane sitting next to a woman who had quit her job, and I'm kind of high level paraphrasing this conversation. Her job at Starbucks was to create the most addictive flavors of frappuccinos and drinks as possible. That was her job, and she did great at it. And she realized one day that I've never been into a Starbucks. So she goes into a Starbucks, and there's a line full of parents and kids ordering these highly addictive, sugary laden, and she couldn't do it anymore with a conscience. And so that's what I'm talking about. This is a piece that people don't understand. So, we're talking about all groups of people and health and how do we focus on this? Well, the first thing is this is why I love RFK. It's got to start at the government level, and we've got to start putting warning labels. If sugar is as addictive as cocaine, they talk about this in Fed Up too. They did some amazing rat studies where they had cocaine-addicted rats, and they had a bottle of cocaine water and then a bottle of sugar water, and something like 42 out of the 46 rats preferred the sugar water because it lights up the brain in the same areas as the cocaine. So if it's that addictive, why don't we have warning labels like we do for cigarettes? So we've got to start educating people in the right way. Look, you're picking up this thing for your kid, these Fruit Loops, or this whatever other non-cereal that has all these chemicals in it that they don't have in Europe, right? This has been a big trend coming up where they're comparing our Fruit Loops to European Fruit Loops and seeing there's a lot of differences. But there should be warning labels. If you're going to have chemicals in these foods that you're feeding to children, parents should know what they're dealing with. But instead, it's okay to market to the parents that gluten-free, 10% fruit juice, with all these marketing things that trick a parent or ease our guilty conscience about buying something easy, quick, that it's healthy. So we kind of got to peel it way back. Yes, there's a problem. Yes, there's choice involved. But, our lack of, I hate even saying this because, you and I are very anti-regulation, but there's got to be some sort of check and balance.
Well, you don't want to take away the freedom to choose, right?
Correct.
But at least know what you're choosing.
Know what you're choosing. Right.
And that's
and that's what I think's missing. So many people don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And then, of course, we could talk about food deserts and all that. But really getting back to, we're circling it back to why is it so important, really for everybody, but especially in our community where we have influence, the Christian community, clinicians, it doesn't matter, whatever group you're a part of that has influence, why it's so important to maintain our health. Why is that? Because we were each designed and born with a gift to share with the world. And if we're sick and tired, we're not going to want to share those.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot when I'm speaking to physicians. And I always use that quote from The Gladiator, which is at the end of those of you that have seen that movie. And he says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity."
In the halls of eternity.
And so what is that? What I mean by that when I'm talking to physicians is, the influence that you have on people and what you're actually doing affects so many other areas of people's life.
Right.
But the first thing that you have to realize, and this is what he was kind of realizing in the movie, was become mindful of what is actually happening first. Right. This is what is happening. The scene is when he's getting ready to walk out on the Coliseum floor. But be mindful about what is that. So be mindful about, as Christians, or not. It doesn't have to be Christian. I'm just saying is be mindful about what it is that I cannot minister nearly as well as a Christian if my focus is on my physical malady.
Right.
Think about this. And I use this example of, Aunt Margaret at the Thanksgiving table. She comes to the table. She's in a wheelchair with a colostomy bag, taking 14 medications. She doesn't know who she is because she's kind of worked out of her mind. And she has the opportunity there to impart wisdom to the next generation, to speak biblical truths and to speak spiritual life into her grandkids. But she can't because she's followed this whole sick care system from the time that she was really, 40, 50 years old, just down the path. And we see this all the time. Versus because you decided in your 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, whenever, and there's never a time that you go, it's too late, I'm already too sick. But making that change and then realize because you made that change back then, and by the way, I'll also say this, it takes discipline. And that's the other thing that many people don't want to. We're in a life of ease. Everything's convenient. Everything's downloaded. Everything's instantaneous. You got to realize it's going to take some effort. It is going to take some discipline, but you've got to do it. You have to do it. Or fast forward, here I am at the Thanksgiving table, and now I can't impart all this spiritual wisdom that I've learned over my life because I'm too sick.
Yeah, and I've become a burden to my family rather than
they go down. We have people now that are kind of our age that have taken now care of their parents. They've had to put them in a home. They've had to take care of them, and probably a lot of people in the audience have had this situation where they have dementia, they have Alzheimer's, they have whatever situation, and they're having to pay for that. It becomes a burden on them, and that's not a slight to their parents. It's just a fact. So what are they doing? They're coming to us and our minds set of thinking and going, I don't want to be a burden like this to my kids. So therefore, but you got to, again, realize it, make the mental shift, make the mental aware, have awareness about it. And then let's do something about it.
Yeah. And, and I think about what if that same Aunt Margaret was full of all of her faculties and was able to share the part she played in World War II, like the stories, those stories that used to be imparted down from generation to generation.
Or how about this? This is how I made this great turkey. This is, this imparting a family recipe that is healthy, and it's this and it's that, and she's able to enjoy it. She's be able to. And again, this is a silly example, but it's information that is valuable that is passed on to the next generation. That historically has always been done, around the fire type of the Indians telling the stories and the early settlers having, this time where they're reminiscing back in the Bible history. So we remember that, right? We do lose a lot of that, and it's so important.
Well, you look at what we, I think a lot of people have heard of the blue zones where, all the centenarians are people that are living to 100 and beyond. And what are some common things that they do? And these are all Christian principles, to be honest, really. Whether
not
they're
necessarily in a Christian
they're not,
country.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that is very important to them is purpose. They wake up every day. These are some studies that have been done all over the world where the concentrated blue zones, these were the things they had in common. They all had a purpose, whether it was getting up and being the volunteer crossing guard for the elementary school, whether it doesn't matter what it was, they had a purpose. They also moved their bodies. They walked places. They gardened. They grew vegetables. They played a part in the food and the food preparation, right? They also, another big thing they had in common is they all drank some form of green tea, which is really interesting. So every time I read these things, I'm like, dang, I need to drink more green tea. But another really important thing that they all had in common is they were part of a community. And I think that is what happens, especially in our country. We become isolated. You just said it. We have to put our parent in a home. A lot of these centenarian, family units, the parent comes back and lives with the family. But they're healthy and they have their faculties, and
they're helping. They're helping raise
and
kids.
They're part of the community unit. So I think all of these things are important. So moving our bodies. Waking up with gratitude and purpose every day, paying attention to what we're putting in our bodies and being a part of a community. These are things that are so important. They are biblical. They're truths. And I think it's something that's really we've kind of lost in our culture, really, in the American culture, unfortunately. So how can we get back to that? It's important.
So I always like to give people practical things.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're talking about all this stuff, and you say, you better do something about this. Well, what is that something?
Yeah.
And I think that simple is always good to start. Let's, again, you got to have that mental aha moment where you go, you know what? I don't want to be 60 years old, and this is when we start seeing people on chronic medication. It used to be 60. Now
Yes,
it's 50,
40s
40.
Yeah.
It just keeps going backwards. So you're getting 30-year-olds on medications and staying. So if you're alive, the average male lives to be 74 years of age. So those of you that...
Women are in our 80s.
Yeah, you're a little bit more, but not by much. But 74. So you guys that are listening to me, how old are you right now? I'm 55. So really, I have, on the average, 19 more years to live, if my math is correct. So how do I want to live those 19 years? I mean, do I want to live, in a vegetable state, if you were? I'm on the couch.
Or just chronic pain. Chronic
Exactly. My knees hurt all the time. All of those types of things. So having that realization first, getting back to what I was saying, doing something simple with your kids and with you, like
grandkids too.
Grandkids. Number one, this would be mine, and your doctor. You may think differently than this, but I'm a regular guy. We're not going to drink soda in our house anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I can't tell you. I mean, again, it doesn't mean that I never have a soda every now and again, but let's just cut it out. Let's just quit buying Sunkist and quit buying Dr.
We haven't
Pepper.
bought sodas in our house in years.
Yeah, I don't think we ever did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Unless we had
but
a
those
party
are
or
the
something.
simple things, right?
Yeah.
So
take
take
one
that,
little thing.
Just start with something.
Right.
Get used to, hey, we don't have it, so we drink
Right.
water at dinner. Oh, here's the second thing. Let's have a home cooked meal.
Right.
Now this goes into the whole thing. Well, the woman's working, she doesn't have time. You can do it. You just have to get organized with it.
People make time for what's important.
Correct.
We can always find time for something that's important to
That's right.
us. So if it is important, you can make that shift for sure.
So having that go back to aha moment, I need to change. I want to change.
What's
I'm
one thing
going to
I
do
could
something.
change?
What's one thing that I can change?
This week.
And then follow it and practice and be disciplined in it. Again, go back to what I was saying earlier. You have to be disciplined in whatever else you want. But it's hard because people aren't used to being disciplined.
Right.
So what's an easy way that we can discipline ourselves? I'm not buying sodas when I go to whether we're going out to eat or whether we're going to the grocery store. We just don't buy it. And be consistent on that. Be disciplined in making sure that you follow through on that.
This is a great, let's have another conversation sometime about New Year's resolutions and goal setting. And because that's another thing, it's making me think of, we're coming up on that time of year where everybody's going to make all these resolutions and changes, and I'm going to do, this and that. And, we've talked about a lot. It's all coming full circle, but I think that would be a fun conversation. But it was fun having you here.
Are we done?
I think so.
Okay.
We could ramble forever, and then people just don't want to hear us rambling for that long, I don't think.
I think that
Maybe they do.
making the realization that there's an issue, right? You can't fix a problem without acknowledging that there's a problem.
Yeah.
We didn't really get into the RFK thing so much.
That's okay. It was just a little. It was just making mention that it is thankfully becoming an issue at a higher level.
Yes, right.
And there's a lot more awareness being brought to it. But I think kind of what we started with is, how can we as a body of, a faith body and what, we believe that we were designed to be and do and impart in the world. How can we get better in that? And how come we're not talking about our physical health as an aspect of our faith? I think that's really
Our
kind of what it was.
spirituality, certainly.
So,
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks.